19 black male actors who had strange preferences for men. For decades, some of the most gifted black entertainers and cultural icons carried a truth the world was not always ready to accept. Behind the applause awards, best-selling records, and unforgettable performances were personal battles over identity, sexuality, faith, and the fear of losing everything they had built. From James Baldwin and Little Richard to RuPaul Billy Porter and Colman Domingo, these men lived through dramatically different eras, but each challenged expectations in his own way. Today, on Golden Black Legends, we uncover the real documented stories behind 19 remarkable black figures. Before we begin, subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below which name on this list surprised you the most. Colman Domingo. Colman Domingo's story is not one of overnight success. It is the story of a black gay artist who spent decades building his craft before Hollywood finally recognized just how powerful he could be. Born in Philadelphia in 1969, Domingo began professionally in theater, eventually becoming an acclaimed actor, playwright, and director. Long before mainstream audiences knew his name, he had already earned respect on stage, including a Tony Award nomination for his performance in the musical The Scottsboro Boys. His career demonstrates something older audiences understand well. Sometimes recognition arrives only after years of persistence. Television brought Domingo to a wider audience through Victor Strand on Fear the Walking Dead, while films, including If Beale Street Could Talk, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and Zola revealed his extraordinary range. His portrayal of abusive blues musician Cutler in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom was especially intense, but greater recognition was still ahead. In 2023, Domingo portrayed civil rights activist Bayard Rustin in Rustin. The role carried unusual personal meaning. Rustin was a black gay man whose enormous contribution to the 1963 March on Washington was historically overshadowed, partly because of his sexuality. Domingo himself, openly gay, brought dignity and emotional depth to that overlooked history. The performance earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. He received another consecutive Best Actor nomination for Sing Sing, placing him among a rare group of performers recognized in back-to-back years. Away from the screen, Domingo has spoken openly about his life with his husband, Raul Akhtanov, whom he married in 2014. By 2026, at 56, Domingo's journey feels bigger than celebrity. He spent years working without the recognition he deserved, only to become one of his generation's most respected actors. His story proves that living openly and succeeding on your own terms does not always make the road easier, but it can make the destination far more meaningful. Little Richard. Before rock and roll learned how to scream, sparkle, and explode across a stage, there was Little Richard. Born Richard Wayne Penniman in Macon, Georgia. In 1932, he became one of the architects of rock music, combining gospel intensity, pounding piano, flamboyant performance, and an unforgettable voice. Songs such as Tutti Frutti, Long Tall Sally, and Good Golly Miss Molly helped reshape popular music during the 1950s and influenced generations ranging from the Beatles to Prince. But behind that revolutionary public image was a man who spent much of his life wrestling with sexuality, religion, identity, and acceptance. Richard's relationship with sexuality cannot accurately be reduced to one simple label. At different points, he publicly discussed attraction to men and women and described himself in different ways. He also repeatedly moved between the secular music world and evangelical Christianity. At times, he embraced his flamboyance. At others, he condemned homosexuality through his religious beliefs. Those contradictions are essential to understanding him rather than rewriting his life into a cleaner modern narrative. What is undeniable is that Little Richard challenged expectations of black masculinity during an era when doing so carried enormous social risk. His makeup, towering hair, extravagant clothing, physical performance, and uninhibited personality shattered conventions years before mainstream America had language for many of the identities being expressed around it. His influence was eventually recognized with induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's inaugural class in 1986. Yet Richard often argued that others received greater financial rewards and recognition from a musical language he helped create. Little Richard died on May 9, 2020 at age 87 from bone cancer. His life was filled with contradictions, faith and desire, confidence and conflict, celebration and regret. That complexity is precisely why his story remains so powerful. Little Richard did not merely participate in rock and roll, he helped invent its sound, its spectacle, and its freedom, and generations of artists walked through the door he kicked open. Billy Porter. Billy Porter's journey is a story of talent survival and refusing to disappear in an industry that did not always know what to do with an openly gay black performer. Born in Pittsburgh in 1969, Porter developed his voice through church and musical theater before building a professional career on Broadway. His early years were not an effortless climb to fame. He has spoken openly about facing rejection and struggling to find roles that allowed him to express the full range of his identity and abilities. His breakthrough reached another level with Kinky Boots, playing Lola, a charismatic drag performer who helps transform a struggling shoe factory. Porter delivered a performance filled with humor, vulnerability, and extraordinary vocal power. In 2013, he won the Tony Award for Best Actor in a Musical. Then came Pose. Beginning in 2018, Porter portrayed Pray Tell, the outspoken ballroom MC living through the devastating HIV/AIDS crisis of the 1980s and 1990s. In 2019, Porter won the Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series, becoming the first openly gay black man to win that category. Porter has also been candid about his own life. In 2021, he publicly disclosed that he had been living with HIV since 2007, explaining how fear and stigma had contributed to his keeping the diagnosis private for years. His decision to speak publicly turned an intensely personal experience into a broader conversation about shame survival and acceptance. His fashion choices have also challenged traditional expectations of masculinity, particularly his memorable tuxedo gown at the 2019 Academy Awards. By 2026, at 56, Porter represents far more than red carpets and awards. His career reflects decades of fighting to be seen without hiding crucial parts of himself. For older viewers who remember when openly gay black performers had far fewer opportunities, his journey shows just how dramatically visibility has changed and how difficult that change was to achieve. James Baldwin. James Baldwin never needed a movie screen or a hit record to become unforgettable. His power came from words that confronted America with truths about race, sexuality, religion, love and belonging that many people preferred not to hear. Born in Harlem in 1924, Baldwin grew up in poverty and became a teenage preacher before eventually leaving the church. Those experiences would profoundly influence the writer he became. In 1948, frustrated by racism in the United States and searching for greater personal freedom, Baldwin moved to Paris. Distance gave him room to examine America while also exploring his own identity and relationships with men. His 1953 novel Go Tell It on the Mountain established him as a major literary voice. 3 years later came Giovanni's Room, a daring novel centered on relationships between men. Publishing such a work in 1956 was a tremendous risk, particularly for a black writer whose career was still developing. Yet Baldwin refused to separate human sexuality from the larger questions of identity that shaped his writing. Works including The Fire Next Time, Another Country and Notes of a Native Son further established his importance. Baldwin also became a prominent voice during the civil rights era, engaging with figures such as Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Medgar Evers while maintaining an independent perspective. His sexuality was not merely a footnote. Baldwin wrote openly about same-sex desire and challenged the rigid labels society attempted to impose on people. However, modern terminology should be applied carefully because Baldwin's own understanding of sexuality was more nuanced than a simple contemporary category. Baldwin died in France in 1987 at age 63 from stomach cancer. Nearly 4 decades later, his words remain strikingly alive. Baldwin's greatest legacy may be his refusal to choose between being black, being queer, being American, and being an artist. He insisted on telling the whole complicated truth, and generations are still discovering themselves inside it. RuPaul Charles. Long before drag became a mainstream television phenomenon, RuPaul Charles was fighting to make himself impossible to ignore. Born in San Diego in 1960, RuPaul moved through the underground club and performance scenes of Atlanta and New York before breaking into popular culture with a combination of music, fashion, comedy, and fearless self-promotion. The turning point came in the early 1990s. His 1992 single, Supermodel, You Better Work, became an international dance hit and transformed RuPaul from an underground performer into a recognizable pop culture figure. At a time when openly gay black entertainers and especially drag performers faced enormous barriers to mainstream exposure, his visibility was extraordinary. RuPaul continued expanding his reach through music, film, television, and the RuPaul Show on VH1, but his most influential chapter began in 2009 with RuPaul's Drag Race. What started as a relatively modest reality competition evolved into an international franchise that changed the visibility of drag performers around the world. RuPaul's work on the program has brought extensive Emmy recognition, including repeated victories as host. The franchise also helped launch the careers of numerous drag artists and brought vocabulary, fashion, performance traditions, and elements of LGBTQ+ culture into mainstream entertainment. Accuracy matters here because the original transcript contained an impossible claim about a drag race incident occurring in 1993. RuPaul's Drag Race did not premiere until 2009, so that story should not be repeated. RuPaul has also been open about being gay and has spoken publicly about his relationship with George LeBar. The couple met in 1994 and married in 2017. By 2026, RuPaul is 65. His journey from underground clubs to global television illustrates an extraordinary cultural transformation. RuPaul did not simply find a place within mainstream entertainment. He helped reshape the mainstream until there was room for performers who once would have been pushed to its margins. Johnny Mathis. Johnny Mathis became famous through romance. His smooth voice carried songs about love into millions of homes. Yet for much of his career, an important part of his own personal identity remained far less publicly discussed. Born in Texas in 1935 and raised in San Francisco, Mathis possessed both musical and athletic talent. He became an accomplished high jumper and was reportedly invited to try out for the 1956 US Olympic team, but music ultimately became his path. That decision produced one of the longest recording careers in American popular music. Mathis signed with Columbia Records and found enormous success during the late 1950s, with recordings including Chances Are Wonderful, Wonderful and It's Not For Me to Say. His 1958 collection, Johnny's Greatest Hits, became historically important for its extraordinary longevity on the Billboard album chart. But Mathis entered show business during an era when being openly gay could threaten a performer's livelihood. In a 1982 magazine interview, he was quoted discussing homosexuality as a way of life. He had grown accustomed to remarks that attracted considerable attention. Years later, Mathis spoke more openly about being gay and about the realities surrounding his private life. That history should not be distorted into unsupported stories of harassment or secret crimes. His documented experience is already compelling a black man building an enormously successful romantic ballad career while navigating sexuality in an entertainment industry far less accepting than it is today. Mathis never needed controversy to remain relevant. His longevity became the story. By 2026, at 90, Johnny Mathis stands as one of the surviving voices of a very different musical era. For listeners who first heard him decades ago, his recordings carry memories of dances, romances, marriages, and youth. Behind that timeless voice was a man who lived through profound changes in how America understood both race and sexuality and survived long enough to see conversations once whispered about finally spoken aloud. Lee Daniels. Lee Daniels built his career by telling stories. Hollywood often considered too uncomfortable, too complicated, or too marginalized for mainstream audiences. Born in Philadelphia in 1959, Daniels eventually became one of the most prominent, openly gay black filmmakers in American entertainment. But his path into filmmaking was unconventional. Before directing, he worked in talent management and producing, gradually developing the confidence and industry relationships necessary to tell stories on his own terms. His breakthrough as a producer came with Monsters Ball in 2001, the film that earned Halle Berry the Academy Award for Best Actress. Daniels later made his directorial debut with Shadowboxer, but his defining early achievement arrived with Precious, based on the novel Push by Sapphire in 2009. The emotionally devastating drama earned 6 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture and Best Director for Daniels. He became only the second black filmmaker nominated for the directing Oscar. Daniels continued exploring race, family trauma, ambition, and power through projects including The Butler. On television, he co-created Empire, which premiered in 2015 and became a major cultural phenomenon, followed by Star. His identity as a gay black man has been an important part of his public story. Daniels has discussed growing up in an environment where masculinity and sexuality could become sources of conflict, experiences that influenced the emotional territory he later explored as an artist. Claims in the original transcript accusing Daniels of sexually assaulting actors should not be repeated as fact without credible evidence. His documented life already provides a powerful story without inventing scandal. By 2026, at 66, Daniels has spent decades pushing black stories toward the center of popular culture. His legacy is complicated, provocative, and unmistakably his own, a filmmaker who repeatedly chose characters living outside society's comfortable boundaries and demanded that audiences look directly at them. André De Shields. André De Shields spent more than half a century proving that recognition does not have to arrive early to matter. Born in Baltimore in 1946, he entered professional theater during an era when opportunities for black performers were limited and openly gay black artists faced even greater barriers. Instead of allowing those restrictions to determine his future, De Shields developed an unmistakable stage presence built on elegance, intelligence, movement, humor, and extraordinary charisma. His major breakthrough came during the 1970s when he originated the title role in Broadway's The Wiz. He later appeared in productions including Ain't Misbehavin', Play On, and The Full Monty, collecting Tony nominations while establishing himself as one of Broadway's most distinctive performers. Yet the greatest awards moment of his career would not arrive until decades later. De Shields portrayed Hermes in Hadestown, becoming the magnetic narrator who guides audiences through the tragic journey of Orpheus and Eurydice. In 2019, at age 73, he won the Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a Musical. After decades of work, the victory carried an emotional weight that an early career triumph simply could not have possessed. He has also lived openly as a gay man and survived an era when the AIDS epidemic devastated the artistic and LGBTQ+ communities around him. By 2026, De Shields is 80, and his journey carries particular meaning for older audiences. Hollywood often celebrates youth as though success has an expiration date, but De Shields proved otherwise. He kept performing, evolving, and commanding stages long after many people might have expected him to slow down. He did not simply survive long enough to receive recognition, he remained creatively powerful enough to earn it. Tituss Burgess. Tituss Burgess spent years developing his extraordinary voice on Broadway before television finally gave him the character that would make millions of viewers remember his name. Born in Georgia, In 1979, Burgess studied music before establishing himself in professional theater. His Broadway credits eventually included Good Vibrations, Jersey Boys, The Little Mermaid, and Guys and Dolls, proving his vocal ability long before mainstream television audiences discovered him. Everything changed in 2015 when Burgess began playing Tituss Andromedon on Netflix's Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Tituss was an aspiring performer with enormous dreams, limited money, spectacular confidence, and equally spectacular insecurities. Burgess could make him outrageously funny one moment and unexpectedly vulnerable the next. His performance became one of the defining elements of the series and earned him multiple Primetime Emmy nominations. The character also arrived at an important moment for LGBTQ+ representation. As an openly gay black performer, Burgess understood a history in which characters like Tituss were frequently hidden, stereotyped, or reduced to supporting jokes. Tituss Andromedon was deliberately larger than life, but he was also allowed friendship, romance, heartbreak, ambition, failure, and emotional depth. Burgess subsequently expanded his work across film, television, voice acting, music, and stage productions, instead of allowing one successful character to define his entire career. By 2026, Burgess is 47. His journey illustrates how dramatically entertainment has changed within a generation. Wider recognition took years to arrive, but when it finally did, Burgess succeeded without disguising the qualities that made him distinctive: the voice, personality, theatricality, and identity that an earlier entertainment industry might have asked him to suppress ultimately became the very things audiences celebrated. Alvin Ailey. Few artists transformed American dance as profoundly as Alvin Ailey. Born in Rogers, Texas in 1931, Ailey grew up amid poverty, segregation, racial discrimination, and instability. After moving to Los Angeles, he discovered concert dance and eventually studied with pioneering choreographer Lester Horton. When Horton died unexpectedly in 1953, the young Ailey temporarily assumed leadership responsibilities within the company, gaining experience that would shape his own artistic future. In 1958, Ailey founded the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater in New York. His vision was groundbreaking. Black dancers and black cultural experiences deserved a central position on the concert stage. His masterpiece, Revelations, first performed in 1960, drew inspiration from African American spirituals, gospel blues, and memories of the Black church. It became one of the most celebrated works in modern dance and remains closely identified with his company decades later. Behind the extraordinary achievement was a more private life. Ailey had relationships with men, but lived during an era when being both black and gay could carry enormous social and professional consequences. His story should therefore be approached through documented history rather than the unsupported harassment allegations appearing in the original transcript. Ailey died on December 1, 1989, at only 58 from an AIDS-related illness during a period when stigma surrounding the disease remained devastatingly powerful. Yet his death did not end his vision. The Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater continued growing into an internationally celebrated institution. By 2026, more than 3 decades after his passing, dancers who were not even born during his lifetime continue performing work shaped by his imagination. That may be Ailey's greatest achievement. He created something larger than one career, giving generations of black dancers a stage where their history and humanity could no longer be ignored. Nathan Lee Graham. Nathan Lee Graham built a career by refusing to make himself smaller for an entertainment industry that historically offered limited space to openly gay black performers. Born in St. Louis in 1968, Graham developed a distinctive performing personality, combining theatrical sophistication, fashion, sharp comic timing, and an unmistakable voice. Rather than fitting neatly into Hollywood's conventional leading man mold, he made individuality part of his professional identity. Many movie audiences first discovered Graham in the 2001 comedy Zoolander, playing Todd, the hilariously intense assistant to Will Ferrell's fashion villain Jacobim Mugatu. Graham managed to stand out even inside a movie filled with deliberately exaggerated personalities. He subsequently appeared in Sweet Home Alabama and later returned as Todd in Zoolander 2. Television brought additional opportunities through projects including Scrubs: The Comeback and LA to Vegas, where his performance as flight attendant Bernard Jasser gave him more room to display his distinctive comedic style. As an openly gay black actor, Graham belongs to a generation that witnessed enormous changes in LGBTQ+ visibility. When his career began, performers could face significant pressure to conceal their sexuality or soften characteristics considered too openly queer for mainstream audiences. Graham instead built a public persona in which those differences were never something that needed to be erased. The serious allegations contained in the original transcript should not be presented as facts without reliable corroborating evidence. By 2026, Graham is 57 and his career demonstrates another form of Hollywood success. He may not have followed the conventional blockbuster star trajectory, but he has remained active across film, television, theater, and live performance for decades. In an industry obsessed with reinvention, Nathan Lee Graham accomplished something surprisingly difficult. He remained recognizable precisely because he never stopped being himself. Paul Winfield. Paul Winfield built a remarkable career during an era when black actors were still fighting for substantial dramatic roles in Hollywood. Born in Los Angeles in 1939, Winfield developed his craft through theater and television before gaining major attention in the 1972 drama Sounder. Playing Nathan Lee Morgan, a black sharecropper struggling to support his family during the Great Depression, Winfield delivered a performance of extraordinary dignity and emotional restraint. The role earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor, making him only the third black performer nominated in that category at the time. His career extended far beyond that landmark performance. Winfield portrayed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the television miniseries. King appeared in The Terminator, played Captain Clark Terrell in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, and accumulated an extensive collection of television credits. In 1995, he won a Primetime Emmy for a guest performance on Picket Fences. His commanding voice also made him a respected narrator. Winfield kept his private life relatively guarded during much of his career. He shared a long-term relationship with architect Charles Gillen Jr., who died in 2002. Discussing that history is far more responsible than repeating the unsupported harassment stories contained in the original transcript. Winfield belonged to a generation when being openly gay could seriously affect the roles and opportunities available to a black leading man. Winfield died on March 7, 2004, at age 64. By then, he had spent decades breaking barriers without always receiving the attention granted to later generations. His legacy is not built on scandal, but on performances filled with intelligence, authority, and humanity. For audiences revisiting his work today, Paul Winfield represents a pioneering black actor who quietly helped widen Hollywood's possibilities for everyone who followed. François Clemmons. François Clemmons made television history through something that appeared remarkably simple, playing a friendly neighborhood police officer. Born in Birmingham, Alabama, in 1945, Clemmons grew up during segregation and eventually developed an exceptional singing voice. His musical talents brought him into professional performance, but millions of Americans would come to know him through Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, where Fred Rogers invited him to portray Officer Clemmons beginning in 1968. That casting carried enormous significance. At a time of intense racial conflict in America, seeing a black police officer treated with warmth and respect on children's television sent a powerful message. One particularly famous 1969 scene showed Rogers and Clemmons sitting together and cooling their feet in the same small pool. Against the historical backdrop of segregated swimming facilities, the quiet image became one of the program's most enduring moments. Behind the screen, however, Clemmons faced a painful conflict involving his sexuality. In his memoir, Officer Clemmons, he described how Rogers told him that being openly gay could threaten the program because sponsors and audiences of that era might not accept it. Clemmons married a woman, though the marriage eventually ended, and he later lived more openly as a gay man. Importantly, he also described his relationship with Rogers as evolving into one of deep love and acceptance. Clemmons built a substantial musical career as well, including founding the Harlem Spiritual Ensemble and teaching at Middlebury College. By 2026, at 81, his legacy extends far beyond one television role. His journey reflects both how restrictive America once was and how much changed during his lifetime. Officer Clemmons taught children about kindness, but François Clemmons' real story teaches something deeper. Visibility sometimes arrives slowly, painfully, and one courageous step at a time. Don Lemon. Don Lemon became one of the most recognizable black gay journalists on American television after a career that began far from the celebrity-driven world of primetime cable news. Born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana in 1966, Lemon worked his way through local television journalism, including positions in Birmingham, St. Louis, and Philadelphia before joining NBC News. He later worked in Chicago and eventually joined CNN in 2006, beginning the chapter that would define his national profile. At CNN, Lemon covered breaking news, elections, racial tensions, mass shootings, and major political events before becoming the longtime host of CNN Tonight. His willingness to express strong opinions made him both influential and polarizing. In 2022, he moved to CNN This Morning alongside Poppy Harlow and Caitlin Collins. The arrangement proved short-lived, and CNN announced Lemon's departure in April 2023 after approximately 17 years with the network. Long before that departure, Lemon had made an important personal decision. In his 2011 memoir, Transparent, he publicly discussed being gay. At the time, there were still very few openly gay black men occupying such prominent positions in American broadcast journalism. Lemon later became engaged to real estate professional Tim Malone, and the couple married in New York in April 2024. After CNN, Lemon developed independent media projects, including The Don Lemon Show, allowing him to continue interviewing public figures and commenting on current events outside traditional cable television. His career has remained controversial at times, but controversy should be separated from unsupported allegations such as those presented without adequate evidence in the original transcript. By 2026, Lemon is 60. Whatever viewers think of his politics or broadcasting style, his visibility carries historical significance. A black gay journalist who once entered television when openness could threaten a career eventually discussed his husband and identity publicly, something earlier generations of broadcasters could scarcely have imagined. Maurice Hines. Maurice Hines spent much of his life proving that dance could tell a story before a performer ever spoke a word. Born in New York City in 1943, Maurice began dancing as a child alongside his younger brother, Gregory Hines. With their father, Maurice Hines Sr., they eventually performed as Hines, Hines and Dad, appearing on major stages and television programs during an era when black entertainers still faced formidable racial barriers. Maurice and Gregory developed an electrifying tap partnership, but Maurice was never simply the brother standing beside a future star. His precision theatrical presence and sophisticated style gave him an identity entirely his own. His Broadway career included productions such as UB, Bring Back Birdie, Sophisticated Ladies, and Uptown, It's Hot. The latter earned him a Tony Award nomination for Best Actor in a Musical in 1986. His relationship with Gregory was loving but complicated, and the brothers experienced a lengthy estrangement before eventually reconciling. Gregory's death from cancer in 2003 left Maurice carrying both their shared history and the memories of a partnership that had begun when they were boys. Hines was openly gay, something especially significant for a black male entertainer of his generation. Rather than inventing scandal around his sexuality, his real story reveals the challenges of building a public career while living authentically in periods when homosexuality was frequently stigmatized. The 2019 documentary Maurice Hines, Bring Them Back, explored his career, family relationships, sexuality, and reflections on aging. Maurice Hines died on December 29, 2023 at age 80. His passing closed another chapter in the extraordinary Hines family story. Yet recordings preserve those effortless movements and that unmistakable elegance. Maurice spent decades dancing through changing attitudes about race, sexuality, and masculinity, and by the end, he had become more than a tap legend. He was a survivor who finally had the freedom to tell his own story. Marlon Riggs. Marlon Riggs understood that sometimes simply telling the truth about yourself can become a revolutionary act. Born in Fort Worth, Texas in 1957, Riggs became a filmmaker, writer, educator, and cultural critic whose work confronted subjects that mainstream American media often avoided: black gay identity, racism, homophobia, masculinity desire, and the devastating human cost of the AIDS epidemic. Rather than asking permission to enter existing conversations, Riggs created a cinematic language in which black gay men could speak about themselves. His most influential work was the 1989 experimental documentary Tongues Untied. Combining poetry, personal testimony, performance music, and documentary imagery, the film explored what it meant to live at the intersection of being black and gay in America. Riggs challenged racism within predominantly white gay spaces while simultaneously confronting homophobia within black communities. The result was deeply personal and politically explosive. Tongues Untied later became caught in national controversies surrounding public funding for art and LGBTQ+ representation. Riggs continued creating despite living with HIV. His work included Color Adjustment, an acclaimed examination of representations of Black Americans on television, as well as No Regret and The Unfinished Black Is, Black Ain't. His filmmaking refused simple answers. Black identity in Riggs' vision was diverse, contradictory, evolving, and impossible to compress into one acceptable image. Riggs died from complications related to AIDS on April 5, 1994, at only 37. He did not live to see the enormous expansion of black LGBTQ+ representation that followed, but his fingerprints can be found throughout that progress. By 2026, Tongues Untied remains an important work in queer cinema and black documentary history. Marlon Riggs had only a short lifetime to create, yet he used it to preserve voices that society was allowing to disappear and made silence itself impossible. Patrik-Ian Polk. Patrik-Ian Polk helped bring black gay lives to television at a time when those stories were still remarkably rare. Born in Hattiesburg, Mississippi in 1973, Polk grew into a filmmaker determined to create the representation he had rarely seen while coming of age. Instead of waiting indefinitely for mainstream Hollywood to place black gay men at the center of a story, he began developing projects in which their friendships, careers, romances, disappointments, and everyday experiences could exist without being treated as background material. His breakthrough came through Noah's Ark, which premiered as a television series on Logo in 2005. Created by Polk, the show followed Noah Nicholson and a close circle of black gay friends living in Los Angeles. Its importance went beyond entertainment. At a time when gay television characters were becoming more visible, but black gay men remained severely underrepresented, Noah's Ark gave them an entire narrative world. The series developed a devoted following despite its relatively short original run. Polk continued the story with the 2008 feature film Noah's Ark: Jumping the Broom. He later directed The Skinny and Blackbird, continuing to explore black LGBTQ+ identity relationships, family expectations, and self-acceptance. Decades after the original series, the enduring affection for these characters demonstrated how deeply audiences had connected with representation they had waited years to see. Polk is openly gay and his creative work has consistently reflected perspectives drawn from Black queer life. Unsupported allegations from the original transcript should not replace this documented contribution to LGBTQ+ media history. By 2026, Polk is 53. Today, audiences can find far more Black LGBTQ+ characters across television and streaming than they could when Noah's Ark appeared. That progress involved many creators, but Polk deserves a place in that history. He did not merely ask Hollywood for representation, he picked up a camera and helped create it himself. Willi Ninja. Willi Ninja never became a conventional Hollywood movie star, yet his influence traveled far beyond the underground New York scene where he first became legendary. Born William Roscoe Leake in 1961, Ninja emerged from Harlem's ballroom culture, a creative world built largely by Black and Latino LGBTQ+ communities. Their fashion dance competition, chosen families, and self-expression created a sanctuary for people frequently rejected elsewhere. Ninja became one of voguing's most influential figures, developing movements distinguished by extraordinary precision poses and fluid control. His international breakthrough came through Jenny Livingston's 1990 documentary Paris is Burning. The film introduced wider audiences to ballroom culture and captured Ninja discussing his ambitions while demonstrating the dance form he helped popularize. As voguing moved into mainstream culture, particularly during the era of Madonna's Vogue, Ninja became increasingly recognized as one of the artists whose community had developed the style long before pop audiences discovered it. Ninja also founded the House of Ninja, creating a chosen family within ballroom culture that would continue beyond his lifetime. His talents led to work in dance choreography, modeling, and fashion, including appearances connected with major designers and artists. Yet his importance cannot be measured simply by mainstream credits. He represented a Black gay artist, turning a marginalized cultural language into something the world eventually imitated. Willi Ninja died on September 2, 2006, at only 45 from AIDS-related heart failure. His life was relatively short, but his cultural footprint became enormous. By 2026, ballroom and voguing have reached television, music videos, fashion stages, and dance communities around the world. Many people performing those movements today may never have met Willi Ninja, but they are moving through a cultural landscape he helped create. Doug Spearman. Doug Spearman became part of an important television milestone when he joined Noah's Ark, a series that placed Black gay men at the center rather than the edges of their own stories. Born in Washington, D.C. in 1962, Spearman developed a career spanning acting, writing, directing, and producing. His path became especially meaningful during the mid-2000s when openly gay Black male characters were still uncommon on American television and nuanced portrayals of their relationships were even harder to find. On Noah's Ark, Spearman played Chance, counter and economics professor and one of Noah's closest friends. Chance stood apart from many stereotypes historically attached to gay Black characters. He was educated, thoughtful, committed to his relationship, and helping raise a child within a family structure rarely represented on television at the time. Spearman gave the character warmth and maturity, providing an important counterbalance to the romantic and comic chaos surrounding the group. When the television series ended, Spearman returned as Chance in the 2008 film Noah's Ark, Jumping the Broom, but acting represents only part of his work. He later moved further into filmmaking, writing and directing Hot Guys with Guns, a 2013 mystery comedy centered on gay protagonists. That project allowed him to continue challenging the assumption that LGBTQ+ stories needed to remain confined to coming-out narratives. Spearman is openly gay and has used his career to advocate for broader Black LGBTQ+ visibility. Serious, unsupported allegations should not be repeated simply because they appeared in the original transcript. Documented achievements provide a much stronger foundation for his story. By 2026, Spearman is 63. His career belongs to a generation that helped bridge two very different television eras. when Noah's Ark premiered, seeing several black gay men simply living, loving, arguing, succeeding and building families together was groundbreaking. Today, that may seem less unusual, and that change is part of the legacy Spearman helped create. These 19 black legends lived in different generations, but their stories reveal just how difficult it once was to pursue success while refusing to hide who you truly were. From James Baldwin and Little Richard to Billy Porter Colman, Domingo and RuPaul. Some challenged expectations openly, while others navigated identity in eras when acceptance could never be taken for granted. Their journeys were complicated, deeply personal, and sometimes painful, but their influence helped create opportunities that earlier generations could barely imagine. Now we want to hear from you which of these stories surprised or moved you the most and who deserves greater recognition today. Share your thoughts in the comments below, subscribe to Golden Black Legends, and join us as we continue preserving the stories behind unforgettable black icons.